14 years ago, a young girl vanished on Halloween night. Only now, a forgotten mask found in a dusty basement reveals the chilling truth that will change everything. Before we dive into this gripping story, please let me know where you're watching from by leaving a comment down below. Now, let's begin. The wind carried a brittle edge that Halloween night in 2011, the kind that rustles through dying leaves and slips beneath collars with an invisible hand. It was one of those small-town Octobers in Ash Hollow, where the houses were lined up like quiet sentinels beneath arching maple trees, and the world still felt safe enough to let children roam the sidewalks unaccompanied. Pumpkins flickered on porches, wrapped in curling smoke from nearby chimneys, and children's laughter floated on the breeze like the chime of distant bells. Emily Carter, 8 years old and bursting with excitement, adjusted her black cat ears in the mirror one last time before bounding down the stairs, her felt tail bouncing behind her. Her mother, Linda, tightened her daughter's scarf and kissed her on the head, calling after her to be home by 8. Emily giggled, holding up her plastic pumpkin pail like a trophy. "I'll stay on the block," she promised, her cheeks painted with whiskers, eyes wide with anticipation. And just like that, she was gone. Out the door, into the crisp fall evening, joining the sea of little monsters and fairies moving between doorsteps in search of candy and mischief. Greg, her father, watched her from the front porch, arms folded against the cold, a beer bottle sweating in his hand. "She's getting big," he murmured, a mixture of pride and worry in his voice. Linda gave a soft smile, brushing invisible dust from her jeans. "She's fine. It's just one street." And for a while, that was true. Emily waved at Mrs. Dawson, the retired teacher handing out mini candy bars, and skipped past the Johnson twins dressed as zombies. Witnesses would later recall seeing her at several houses, her laughter blending into the night like so many others. Then, as the clocks ticked past 7:30 and shadows stretched longer across the pavement, something shifted. At the far end of Ash Maple Drive stood the old Victorian house, the one no child dared approach unless dared, the one whispered about in classroom corners. Once grand, now crumbling, its pointed gables and sagging porch had been left to the elements for years. Children said a ghost lived there. Others claimed it was empty. No one had seen anyone come or go for over a decade. But that night, according to 3 separate children, Emily approached it. They remembered the porch light being on for the first time in years. They said she rang the bell. They said the door opened. And that was the last anyone ever saw of her. When 8 o'clock came and went with no sign of Emily, Linda called out into the night, then walked the street, thinking maybe her daughter had lingered in a neighbor's house. By 9, panic had bloomed in her chest like a firestorm. Greg drove the streets while Linda knocked on doors, her voice catching as she asked again and again, "Have you seen Emily?" The police were called. A missing child alert went out. Flashlights cut across yards and alleyways, and the name Emily echoed through backyards and basements. The whole town joined in, stumbling through brush and drainage ditches, hoping, praying, calling. But there was no sign of her, no shoe, no drop pail, not even a candy wrapper. When officers reached the old Victorian house, they found the porch light off. The door was locked, the windows shuttered. No movement inside. When they forced entry, the house was empty. No furniture, no power, no evidence of anyone having been there in years. The only thing out of place was a faint smell, like mildew and something else, something metallic. They searched the premises thoroughly, but found nothing. The house, like Emily, gave up no secrets. Days turned to weeks. The town paper ran headlines, photos, pleas from the Carters. Greg's face grew pale with guilt, Linda's hollow with despair. Candlelight vigils were held. Volunteers combed nearby woods, lakes, and fields. Rumors bloomed like rot. Had she run away? Had someone taken her? Had she fallen and vanished into some hidden space? But no matter how far they searched, the trail ended at that porch. And so, Ash Hollow began to do what all towns must eventually do. It started to forget. Not all at once, and not cruelly, but slowly, like how autumn fades into winter. People spoke her name less often, replaced by newer headlines, newer worries. But for Linda, time stopped that night. The police eventually closed the case, citing lack of evidence. No suspects, no leads. Greg lasted another 3 years before he left, muttering something about needing to breathe, needing to feel alive again. Linda didn't blame him. Grief can make ghosts of the living. She stayed in the house, alone, year after year. Emily's room remained untouched, the bed neatly made, the closet still holding her favorite purple sweater. On Halloween each year, Linda turned on the porch light at dusk and waited. She'd sit in the rocker with a bowl of candy, listening for small footsteps that never came. And every year, as the last child left and the wind carried away the laughter, she whispered to the night, "Please come home." 14 Halloweens passed, and then, on the 15th, something in the house shifted, quietly, like a breath held too long. Something waiting in the dark had begun to stir. 14 years had stretched into an endless silence for Linda Carter. The once lively house, filled with Emily's laughter and the warm chaos of family life, had grown cold and hollow. The walls held memories, snapshots of a life paused in time, but none could fill the empty space her daughter left behind. Each morning, Linda rose before dawn, her hands trembling as she prepared coffee she barely tasted, the old house creaking with the weight of unspoken sorrow. The living room sofa still bore the faint imprint of Emily's small frame. Her clothes hung untouched in the closet. It was as if time had stood still, waiting for the moment Emily would walk back through the door. But that moment never came. Greg, once her partner in hope and despair, had left years ago, unable to bear the haunting grief that clung to every corner of the house. Linda understood. Grief had a way of turning love into a burden too heavy to carry. He packed his bags one cold morning, leaving a folded note on the kitchen table. "I'm sorry," it said, and those 2 words carried a weight that nearly broke her. Alone now, Linda clung to a fragile routine, taking solace in her memories even as they pierced her heart anew. The house grew quieter with every passing day, the silence broken only by Milo, the aging dog who had become her steadfast companion. He was a reminder of simpler times when Emily's joyful screams echoed through the halls and her tiny footsteps chased shadows. Every night, Linda lit a single candle on the windowsill, a beacon for her lost child, hoping that somehow Emily could see it from wherever she was. Her neighbors grew used to the sight. An old woman sitting on her porch, her eyes fixed on the empty street, waiting for a child who never returned. The townspeople whispered, some with sympathy, others with unease. Over time, Linda's story faded from casual conversation, but not from the hearts of those who had known Emily. In the small town of Ash Hollow, her disappearance became a ghost story told in hushed tones, an ache buried beneath the surface. Linda's nights were the hardest. She would sit alone in the dark, clutching Emily's favorite blanket, and whisper lullabies that once sent her daughter drifting to sleep. Sometimes she would dream of Emily, smiling, calling her name, or hiding behind the curtains like she used to. Each morning, she awoke with the sharp sting of reality, the house cold and empty. The years had carved lines on her face and stolen the brightness from her eyes, but the love she held for Emily remained fierce and unwavering. Despite the isolation, she refused to leave the house, the only tangible connection to her daughter's brief life. It was in these quiet moments, surrounded by fading photographs and lingering scents, that Linda's hope began to flicker again, fragile but alive. Then, as her 70th birthday approached, financial worries pressed harder. The house needed repairs, and Linda's savings dwindled with each passing month. She faced the impossible choice: sell the home that held her daughter's memory or watch it crumble around her. With a heavy heart, she called a real estate agent, setting in motion a chain of events that would unravel secrets long buried. When Rachel Monroe arrived, a bright-eyed woman with a warm smile and a genuine kindness, Linda hesitated but saw in her the spark of hope she'd been missing. Rachel didn't just see a house. She saw a story, a mother's endless love, and a mystery that refused to die. As they walked through the dusty rooms together, Linda felt a flicker of connection, a promise that maybe, just maybe, the past could speak again. But neither woman knew that the truth was waiting patiently in the shadows, hidden beneath years of dust and silence, ready to emerge and change everything. Rachel Monroe had always been drawn to old houses, those silent keepers of forgotten tales. When she first stepped into the Carter residence, she felt the weight of years pressing down on the peeling wallpaper and worn floorboards. Yet, amid the dust and shadows, there was an undeniable warmth, a whisper of life that had once filled these walls. Linda's story had stirred something deep inside Rachel, a yearning to uncover the truth behind the years of silence and unanswered questions. As a young historian with a passion for uncovering hidden narratives, Rachel saw more than a house. She saw a puzzle waiting to be solved. On her third visit to the house, Rachel decided to explore the basement, a dark, cramped space Linda rarely entered. The stairwell creaked beneath her careful steps as she descended, the smell of damp earth and old wood filling the air. Her flashlight flickered across boxes, forgotten furniture, and cobweb corners. It was there, tucked beneath a loose floorboard, that she spotted something peculiar, a weathered mask, its surface cracked and stained with age. It was no ordinary Halloween mask, delicate, intricately painted, with faint traces of glitter still clinging to its edges. The eyes of the mask seemed almost alive, staring back at her with a haunting intensity. Her breath caught as she gently lifted it from the dust. Rachel brought the mask upstairs to show Linda, who stared at it in stunned silence. "Where did you find this?" Linda whispered, voice trembling. When Rachel told her about the basement discovery, a flood of memories crashed over Linda. The night Emily disappeared, the last Halloween, the old Victorian house, and a strange unease she had buried deep inside. She had never dared to search the basement before. It was a place of shadows and silence, a reminder of the past she could not face. Now, confronted with the mask, Linda's hope flickered brighter than it had in years. Could this be the missing piece? The key to unraveling the mystery that had haunted her every waking moment? News of the discovery spread quickly through Ash Hollow, stirring long-dormant whispers. Neighbors who had kept their distance now approached Linda with cautious curiosity, some offering old rumors, others old warnings. The mask became a symbol, a fragile thread linking the past to the present. Yet, as Rachel began researching its origins, strange things started to happen. Unexplained noises echoed through the house at night. Doors creaked open on their own, and faint footsteps seemed to come from the empty rooms. It was as if the house itself was waking from a long slumber, ready to reveal its secrets, no matter the cost. Rachel's research led her to the local historical society, where she uncovered records of the old Victorian home's previous owners, a reclusive family known for their fascination with masks and theatrical performances. But nothing hinted at the darkness that had seeped into the house's walls. Linda, meanwhile, wrestled with a mixture of fear and hope. The mask had brought the past rushing back, stirring memories both sweet and terrifying. As Halloween approached once more, the anniversary of Emily's disappearance, Linda found herself standing at the edge of a discovery that might finally give her daughter's story the ending it deserved, or shatter the fragile peace she had held onto for so long. The days following the discovery of the mask felt charged with an unsettling energy. Linda and Rachel pored over old photographs, journals, and town records, piecing together the strange history of the Victorian house that had become the epicenter of the mystery. The house had once belonged to the Halloway family, known for their eccentric theatrical productions and elaborate masquerade balls. But beneath the glamour and laughter, whispers hinted at darker secrets. Disappearances, strange rituals, and a chilling obsession with masks that seemed to bind their fate to something beyond explanation. Rachel's research revealed that the mask they found bore striking similarities to the ones used in those old performances, handcrafted, unique, and rumored to hold symbolic power. Linda's heart pounded as she examined a faded photograph of the Halloway children, their faces hidden behind masks much like the one in her hands. Could Emily's disappearance be connected to this family? The idea was both terrifying and compelling. Rachel insisted they delve deeper, suggesting that the mask might be a clue left behind, a message waiting to be decoded. The basement, once ignored and feared, became their laboratory, a place to unearth whatever secrets the walls might still guard. They scoured every inch, finding old trunks, letters, and diaries that spoke of forbidden gatherings and hidden passages within the house, though nothing concrete linked Emily directly to those times. One evening, as autumn winds rattled the windows and shadows lengthened, Rachel found a hidden compartment beneath the floorboards. Inside was a small, dust-covered box filled with faded letters addressed to the Halloway family, written in a hurried, trembling hand. The letters spoke of a young girl, lost, frightened, desperate to escape the grip of those who wore the masks. A chill ran down Linda's spine as she read words that seemed to echo Emily's own story. The letters hinted at a secret room within the basement, a place where the truth was hidden away, locked behind silence and fear. But finding it meant confronting the house's darkest corners, and neither woman was sure what they might uncover. As they prepared to search for the secret room, Linda's memories grew more vivid. Fragments of a shadowy figure watching from the doorway, a faint laugh that didn't belong to any child, the cold feeling of being watched on that Halloween night. She began to question everything she thought she knew, realizing that the past had been carefully concealed by more than time. Rachel's determination fueled the search, their partnership a fragile thread of hope woven through the years of despair. Together, they faced the unknown, ready to unravel the truth buried beneath layers of fear and silence, knowing that what they found could finally bring closure or unravel their lives forever. The next morning dawned cold and gray, with a chill that seemed to seep from the very walls of the old Victorian house. Linda and Rachel approached the basement with a mixture of anticipation and dread, the weight of the unknown pressing down on them. The loose floorboards where Rachel had found the letters now seemed like a gateway to a hidden world, one Linda had long feared but could no longer avoid. Flashlights in hand, they began a meticulous search of every crevice, tapping walls and floors, listening for the faintest hollow echo that might betray a secret passage. Hours passed in silence, broken only by the scuffing of shoes and occasional whispered theories. Then, Rachel's sharp eye caught a peculiar seam in the far corner of the basement, a narrow outline that looked like the edges of a concealed door cleverly blended into the worn wooden paneling. Heart-pounding, Linda reached out and pressed on the panel. To their astonishment, it gave way, revealing a narrow, dimly lit stairway descending deeper into darkness. The air that escaped was cold and stale, carrying with it the scent of forgotten years. Neither woman hesitated. This was the moment they had been waiting for. The stairway led down to a small, cramped room, barely more than a closet. Its walls were lined with cracked plaster and peeling paint, but what caught their attention was the array of items carefully arranged inside. A collection of masks, worn and weathered like the one found in the basement, hung on hooks. Each one was unique, painted with faded colors and patterns that seemed almost alive in the flickering flashlight beam. In the center of the room lay a small wooden chest, its lid slightly ajar. With trembling hands, Rachel lifted the lid, revealing a bundle of old photographs, more letters, and a faded diary. The diary's cover was cracked, the leather worn smooth from years of handling. Linda took the diary and opened it with reverence. The pages inside told a story. One of a young girl who had been hidden away, trapped in fear and silence, longing to escape a world where masks hid not just faces but intentions. As Linda read aloud, memories flickered in her mind, whispers from the past, moments she had buried deep within her heart. The diary was Emily's, or so it seemed. The handwriting, the details, everything pointed to the little girl she had lost 14 years ago. The diary spoke of a secret pact, a night of terror, and a promise made in the darkness. It was a confession, a plea for help, and a key to unlocking the truth that had been concealed for far too long. As they sat in the musty room, The weight of the revelations settled over them. The mask, the letters, the secret room, all pieces of a puzzle that was beginning to take shape. But the diary also hinted at dangers lurking beyond the walls, at those who would go to great lengths to keep the past hidden. Linda felt a surge of resolve. For the first time in years, hope mingled with fear, and she knew that the journey to find Emily had only just begun. The house had whispered its secrets, and now the truth demanded to be heard. The worn leather diary felt fragile in Linda's hands, as if it carried not only the weight of time, but the fragile hopes and fears of a child trapped in silence. Every page turned was a step deeper into a world she had once lived but desperately tried to forget. Emily's handwriting was delicate yet earnest, each word echoing with the voice of a girl whose innocence was stolen by shadows she barely understood. The diary began with simple recounts of everyday life: Halloween preparations, school friends, the joy of picking out costumes. But soon, the entries took a darker turn, revealing a growing fear of a mysterious figure who watched from the shadows during those Halloween nights. Emily wrote of the mask, describing it in haunting detail: the shimmering paint, the glitter that caught the light just so, and how it seemed to hold a power she could neither explain nor resist. She spoke of strange gatherings in the house, people she did not recognize, all wearing masks like the one hidden away in the basement. There were mentions of secret rituals, whispered promises, and a chilling warning not to trust those behind the masks. The final entries were fragmented and desperate, Emily's fear escalating as the Halloween night approached, the night when she vanished. She described being trapped, hidden away in a secret room, and a hope that someone would find her, that someone would understand the truth behind the masks. Linda's heart ached as she read, tears blurring the words. The diary was a testament to Emily's courage, a voice that had been silenced but was now speaking loud and clear. Rachel, sitting beside her, was equally moved, the historian's clinical curiosity replaced by a profound empathy. They realized the mask was not just a clue. It was a symbol of the control and fear that had imprisoned Emily and perhaps other children before her. But the diary also hinted at a way out, a secret hidden in the house's oldest rooms, a key to breaking the cycle of silence and fear. As Linda absorbed the revelations, memories surfaced, fragments of strange noises in the night, glimpses of masked figures disappearing down shadowed hallways. She knew now that those moments were not figments of imagination, but echoes of a horrifying reality. The diary gave her a new purpose: to uncover the full truth, to find out who was behind the masks, and to finally bring peace to the girl who had vanished so long ago. But the deeper they delved, the more dangerous their quest became. The house seemed to resist, its secrets guarded by fear and perhaps those who still lurked in the shadows, unwilling to let the past be uncovered. The air in the basement grew heavier as Linda and Rachel studied the masks hanging on the walls of the secret room. Each one was a masterpiece of eerie craftsmanship, their chipped paint and worn ribbons whispering secrets of forgotten ceremonies. But it was the mask Linda held, the one found 14 years after Emily's disappearance, that seemed to pulse with a sinister life of its own. Rachel explained that masks like these had long been used in ancient rituals, believed to trap the wearer's soul, binding them to a fate beyond death or freedom. The realization chilled Linda to her core. What had happened to Emily was not random. It was tied to something dark and deliberate, a cruel tradition preserved by those who had lived in the house before them. Rachel's research led them to old newspaper archives, where reports from decades ago described masked balls that turned into terrifying events. Several children were rumored to have vanished during those nights, their disappearances dismissed as accidents or runaways. But the truth hinted at something far more sinister: an underground society using the masks to control and silence those who might threaten their power. The deeper Linda and Rachel dug, the more the lines blurred between reality and nightmare. The masks were not just symbols, they were tools of captivity, and Emily had been caught in their web. Linda's mind raced as she pieced together the clues from the diary and the letters. The secret room had been Emily's prison, a place where she had been forced to wear the mask, silenced and hidden away while the house hosted its grim festivities. The mask's discovery was a message, perhaps Emily's last attempt to communicate, to break free from the silence imposed on her. The thought was both hopeful and terrifying. If the mask had power, could it also be the key to freeing her spirit, to ending the curse that had haunted the house for generations? That night, as Linda lay in bed, the weight of the past pressed down on her like never before. She thought of Emily's laughter, now a distant echo, and of the many years lost to fear and silence. The mask was no longer just a relic. It was a beacon, calling her to face the darkness and demand justice. The house, with all its shadows and secrets, awaited their next move. Linda knew that what lay ahead would test her strength, courage, and faith like never before. But for Emily, for every lost child, she would not turn away. The mask had spoken, and now so would she. The following days were a whirlwind of preparation and planning. Linda and Rachel knew that if they were to uncover the full truth behind Emily's disappearance, they would have to confront those who had kept the darkness alive for decades. They reached out discreetly to longtime residents, hoping to find someone with the courage to speak, someone who remembered the eerie events and massed gatherings that had haunted the town's history. Most were reluctant, cloaked in silence or denial, but a few hushed voices hinted at secrets buried deep beneath the surface, whispers of a cult-like group still holding on to old rituals, hidden behind respectable facades. One evening, while reviewing their findings in the basement, a sudden knock at the front door startled them. Standing there was an elderly man with wary eyes and a trembling voice. Mr. Hargrave, once a caretaker for the Halloway estate. He carried stories of the past, tales he had buried in his heart out of fear and guilt. Over cups of cold tea in the dim light of the living room, he recounted the chilling truth. The masks were not mere props, but instruments used to bind victims in a cruel tradition. He confessed that years ago, he had tried to protect the children, but was powerless against the secret society that ruled from the shadows. Emily had been taken because she threatened to expose them. With each word, Linda felt the walls closing and yet also a fierce determination rising within her. The man's account confirmed what the diary had hinted at, a conspiracy that stretched beyond the house, rooted in fear and control. The confrontation was no longer abstract. It was personal, urgent. Together, they planned to attend the upcoming town gala, where whispers suggested the group would gather once again. Linda knew the risk was immense, but she also sensed this was the moment to bring light to the darkness, to confront those hiding behind masks of respectability and silence. As the gala night approached, Linda's thoughts turned to Emily, her bright smile, her lost childhood, and the years stolen from her family. The house's secrets were no longer shadows in a basement. They were a call to action. Armed with the diary, the mask, and newfound allies, Linda prepared herself to face the past head-on, ready to break the cycle and finally uncover the truth that had remained hidden for far too long. The night of the gala arrived like a shadow falling over the town, cloaked in quiet tension and unspoken fears. The grand ballroom of the Halloway estate was transformed into a dazzling spectacle. Crystal chandeliers casting flickering light on guests dressed in elegant attire, their faces hidden behind ornate masks that gleamed in the candlelight. Linda's heart pounded as she stepped through the heavy oak doors, clutching the diary close to her chest. She was acutely aware of the eyes behind those masks, watching, judging, waiting. This was no ordinary gathering. It was a carefully orchestrated display of power and secrecy. Rachel stayed close by her side, their whispers drowned by the murmur of the crowd and the haunting melody of a string quartet playing in the corner. Linda scanned the room, recognizing a few faces from her research, people who had long been rumored to be part of the secret society. They moved with an unsettling grace, their smiles never reaching their eyes, their masks a perfect disguise for the darkness they harbored. The air felt thick with anticipation and dread, as if the walls themselves held their breath. Suddenly, A hush fell over the room as the host, a tall man with a mask of black feathers, took center stage. His voice was smooth, commanding, and as he spoke, Linda felt a cold shiver run down her spine. The speech was laced with veiled threats and cryptic references to tradition and loyalty. Then came the moment she dreaded, the ceremonial unveiling of the mask. The black-feathered man lifted it from a velvet cushion, the same mask that had been found in Linda's basement, the mask that had silenced Emily. A collective murmur spread through the crowd as he placed the mask on a pedestal. Linda's gaze locked on it, a surge of anger and sorrow flooding her. This was their symbol of control, their tool of fear. But amidst the whispers, a sudden commotion erupted near the entrance. A figure rushed forward, knocking over a candelabra, shattering the illusion of decorum. It was Mr. Hargrave, trembling but resolute, exposing the truth he had long hidden. His words ignited a wave of shock and confusion, and for the first time, the mask began to falter. Linda stepped forward, her voice steady and clear, reading aloud from Emily's diary. The room fell silent as the words of a frightened child echoed through the grand hall. Faces flushed, masks were lifted, and the carefully constructed facade began to crumble. The night that had once been a stage for secrets became a battleground for truth, and Linda realized that the long-awaited confrontation had begun. The darkness that had held her daughter captive for so many years was finally being challenged, and the journey toward justice was no longer a distant hope, but a vivid reality. The ballroom was thrown into chaos as the once silent crowd erupted into murmurs and whispers, many faces flushed with shame, others hard with denial. Linda's voice, steady and unwavering, continued to read from Emily's diary, revealing secrets that had long been buried beneath layers of silence and fear. The black-feathered mask gleamed on its pedestal, a symbol not only of control but of the lies and betrayals that had haunted the town for years. Slowly, some began to remove their masks, exposing faces marked by guilt, remorse, or defiance. The air was thick with tension, an unspoken battle between those who wanted to protect the past and those desperate to uncover the truth. Mr. Hargrave, still trembling but emboldened, spoke of his regret and the years lost to silence. He named names, revealing a shadowy network of power that had manipulated the town, silencing victims and witnesses alike. Linda listened, her heart breaking and rising in equal measure, as the truth unfolded with painful clarity. This was no simple disappearance. It was part of a long pattern of abuse hidden behind tradition and fear. But now, with the diary and the courage of those who dared to speak, the darkness was being exposed. Amid the turmoil, Linda caught a glimpse of an unfamiliar face, someone who had slipped quietly into the shadows, watching but not speaking. A woman, eyes bright with tears, her mask half removed. When Linda approached, the woman handed her a small, folded letter, its edges worn and delicate. It was from Emily, written shortly before her disappearance, a final plea for help and a secret message about the hidden room and the key to her escape. The letter confirmed what Linda had hoped. Emily had never given up fighting, even in the darkest moments. The room grew still again, this time filled with a mixture of sorrow, hope, and resolve. Linda knew that exposing the truth was only the beginning. The wounds left by years of silence would take time to heal, but the path toward justice and peace was now open. As masks fell away and secrets spilled into the light, the community faced a reckoning and a chance to reclaim the future stolen from Emily and so many others. With the letter in her trembling hands, Linda felt a fragile thread of hope weaving through the darkness that had shrouded her family for 14 long years. Emily's words, carefully penned and filled with courage, described the hidden room in precise detail, mentioning a small key concealed within an old grandfather clock in the house's parlor. The key, Emily believed, could unlock the door to her captivity, or at least reveal the truth of her ordeal. The discovery stirred a new resolve in Linda. The past was no longer an unsolvable mystery, but a puzzle she could piece together step by step. Rachel and Mr. Hargrave agreed to help Linda search the house thoroughly. Together, they examined every inch, the walls seeming to whisper memories long suppressed. Finally, nestled behind a faded clock face, Linda's fingers closed around the cold metal key, worn smooth by years of hiding. The moment was electric, a tangible link to Emily's struggle and the final step toward uncovering what had been hidden in the shadows for so long. As they unlocked the door to the secret room, a wave of emotion swept through Linda. The air inside was thick with dust and silence, but the traces of a child's presence remained, scratched initials on the wooden walls, faded drawings on the floor, remnants of a life paused in fear. It was both heartbreaking and powerful, a testament to Emily's resilience. Among the debris lay a worn journal, filled with the child's thoughts, fears, and hopes, a voice from the past that would guide Linda in the days to come. The house, once a prison, now became a sanctuary of truth. Linda vowed to honor Emily's memory by bringing justice to light and healing the wounds that had festered in darkness. The journey ahead was still uncertain, but for the first time since that fateful Halloween night, hope was real, and it was within reach. The days following the discovery of the secret room and Emily's journal were a whirlwind of emotion and revelations. Linda pored over the pages, each entry revealing the depth of her daughter's courage and the horrors she had endured. The journal was raw and honest, painting a picture of a child who had clung fiercely to hope despite the darkness that enveloped her. As Linda read, tears streamed down her face, mixing grief with a fierce determination to honor Emily's story by exposing the truth fully. Rachel stood by her side, offering steady support as the town began to awaken to the scandal that had been buried for so long. Public meetings were held, survivors and witnesses found their voices, and the once silent community began to confront the legacy of fear and silence. It was painful and slow, but the first steps toward healing were taken as names were called out and accountability demanded. Linda also found unexpected solace in reconnecting with old friends and family members who had supported her over the years. Their shared pain and resilience became a source of strength. The mask found in the basement, once a symbol of horror, now served as a reminder of survival and the courage it took to fight back. Though the scars would never fully fade, the community began to rebuild itself with honesty and compassion. In quiet moments, Linda would visit Emily's old room, now a shrine of memory and hope. She spoke to her daughter in whispered prayers and promises, feeling her presence in the gentle rustle of leaves outside the window. The journey was far from over, but the weight of silence had finally been lifted. Justice, though delayed, was within reach, and with it came the possibility of peace for a family torn apart, but never broken. Months passed since the mask was revealed and the secret room uncovered, and the wheels of justice began to turn slowly but inexorably. Linda, once a grieving mother burdened by unanswered questions, now stood at the forefront of a movement to hold the perpetrators accountable. Grand juries convened, investigations reopened, and the shadowy figures who had orchestrated years of silence and terror faced the light of the law. Each hearing was a battlefield, emotions running high as victims testified and defenders scrambled to maintain their crumbling facades. The town itself seemed to breathe anew, no longer shackled by fear, but cautiously hopeful. Linda's role grew beyond that of a mother. She became a voice for the voiceless, an emblem of perseverance. Yet the process was harrowing. Old wounds were reopened, friendships fractured, and the burden of truth weighed heavily on all involved. Linda often found herself exhausted, battling despair and hope in equal measure. But then a breakthrough came. Key witnesses stepped forward, their testimonies irrefutable. Evidence collected from the hidden room and the diary became central to the prosecution's case. The trial that followed was both public reckoning and communal catharsis. When the verdicts were finally announced, there were tears, sighs of relief, and solemn nods. Justice, though delayed by years, had come at last, bringing a measure of closure to a community long haunted by silence. For Linda, it was not the end, but a new beginning, one forged from pain, truth, and the unyielding love for her daughter whose voice had finally been heard. The courtroom's heavy silence lifted as the final gavel struck, marking the end of a chapter marked by sorrow, courage, and relentless pursuit of truth. Linda stood outside, the autumn breeze brushing her face, carrying the scent of renewal. 14 years had passed since Emily vanished on that fateful Halloween night, a night shrouded in darkness and silence that had consumed an entire community. Now, at last, the veil had been lifted and justice had been served. Yet, Linda knew the journey was not only about closure, but about forging a new path forward, a legacy of hope born from pain. In the months that followed, Linda worked tirelessly to transform her family's tragedy into a beacon for others. She founded a community center dedicated to supporting families affected by loss and injustice, a place where voices could be heard and healing could begin. Emily's story, once whispered behind closed doors, became a rallying cry for transparency and compassion, inspiring change in the town's laws and attitudes. The mask found in the basement was displayed not as a symbol of fear, but as a testament to resilience and the power of truth. On the anniversary of Emily's disappearance, the community gathered in a quiet ceremony beneath the old oak tree where Emily once played. Linda placed a single white rose at its base, her heart full of both sorrow and gratitude. Though the scars of the past would never fully fade, they had been transformed, no longer chains binding the town in silence, but threads weaving a tapestry of light and remembrance. Linda looked to the future, carrying Emily's spirit with her, a light that would never dim. Thank you so much for joining me on this journey through a story of loss, hope, and resilience. I truly appreciate you taking the time to listen and share in this heartfelt tale. If this story moved you or sparked any thoughts, please don't hesitate to like the video, subscribe to the channel for more stories like this, and leave a comment below, whether it's your reflections, your own experiences, or anything you'd like to share. Your support means the world and helps build a community where stories bring us closer together. Until next time, take care and keep the light of hope alive in your heart.